Kia ora koutou, welcome along to this part of the VUWSA 2022 Candidates Forum. My name is Neva, I'm with Salient, and I will be hosting the session today when we are looking at the role of Education Officer. The candidates will be talking a little bit about themselves, and I'll be putting some questions to them that you guys have asked through the online forum.
Thank you. So, kia ora everyone, my name is Willa. I'm a third year Law and Finance student from Hawke's Bay, and I'm running for Education Officer 2022. Ultimately, we all come to university to further ourselves and reach our goals through education. And as a cohort, we're lucky to have groups such as Student Learning, Past Class, VUWSA, and Disability Services that try their hardest to get us through when we need them. Unfortunately, these services are often not quite enough or unavailable for particular students. We all learn differently and consequently require different types of support. I'm running because I want to ensure that students have someone they can talk to comfortably and confidentially regarding their needs and the changes they'd like to see here at Victoria University. Through working at Disability Services and being class rep an embarrassing number of times, I've had so many instances where students reached out to faculty but were told there was nothing the university could do, which should never be the case. Someone who needs help should have some means of support no matter the issue. So my policies of support, advocacy and accessibility all surround making our learning environment more empathetic. We all fall behind, we all get overwhelmed, and we all get stuck on material in class, which is why it's so important that the mahi done by James, our current Education Officer, is continued regarding dual learning, and this ought to be furthered with tutorial recordings and increased support. In the end, supporting students' learning should be the university's greatest priority, as it's our willingness to learn that brought us here, and the knowledge we gain from a strong learning service is what will enable us to reach our full potential in the future.
Kia ora everyone, my name is Shuari Naidoo. I'm studying political science and criminology. I'm running for VUWSA Sustainability and Education Officer for 2022. I will be driving this campaign with long-term goals and compassion, which drives my work as an activist and feminist. I have always been passionate about social justice and climate change, often involved in many ventures and clubs. I run my own business, Morocco Menstrual Cups, with a mission to provide affordable, sustainable and cost-effective period products to counter the issue of period poverty and stigma in society. Morocco has been nominated for a Sustainability Award under the Girls in Business. I'm the president of the Victoria University Feminist Organisation, where we will be creating a podcast called Once Upon a Feminist to provide education and resources to women. I was named the Student Volunteer Army top volunteer across New Zealand, and I was a Y25 for the YWCA. If elected, you will vote someone who prioritizes long-term and realistic strategies for VUWSA. While it is important to maintain sustainable practices, we need our goals to be attainable for students. And when I say attainable, I mean, are students involved? Can students afford or are even interested about being sustainable? And how can VUWSA incentivize students to be more sustainable? My policies and plans include providing free transport for students, incorporating Te Tiriti o Waitangi and Māori principles with an intersectional approach to sustainability on campus, continuing student engagement with Sustainability Week and other events, and collaborating with cultural and eco-friendly businesses and organisations to provide opportunities for students. What I plan as Sustainability Officer are free O-Week cups, an environmental committee with our rep groups, including our Māori and Pacifico groups, and accessible ebooks and textbooks for students. Collectivized action and inclusivity is at the core of my campaign, and we need more student input to improve sustainability on campus. Vote Shuari Naidoo for someone who is dedicated, hardworking, and will directly work with students. Thank you.
Thank you, Shuari. That was a great start we've got there. I'm now going to give you some questions that have come from the student body. and some of them are for all the candidates, some of them are specific to your role, and I'm just kind of throwing them around as we kind of go through things, so hopefully it'll create a nice order. How come you are running for multiple roles on the VUWSA Executive this year?
I think both the Sustainability Officer and Education Officer really correspond with one another. One of the things I'm really passionate about is education and awareness, and I do this a lot with my other activities and ventures. So I think they really correspond to student-centric roles, which I'm passionate about. I'm quite a people's person, I'm quite good at communication, and that's something that I really want to get to the root of, and that's why I did both roles.
Are there any specific communication techniques or any examples you can provide of perhaps something you do should you fall into either of these roles to improve the relationships that VUWSA has with other groups, notably like PSC and Naidoo and the Rainbow UniQ?
One of the things I would like to do is promote more educational events on campus. Specifically, we can incorporate rep groups into this. So I think there needs to be a lot more collaboration with organisations, and I think that really takes an intersectional approach to how we approach sustainability and education on campus, and so that's something I want to get to the core of.
Can you give a specific example of how you think the current learning arrangement can be improved? So you talked about recording tutorials. How would you ensure this is done?
So for me, is working for disability services, and when I fall behind on my own subjects, I can catch up on lectures through recordings currently, but I can't catch up on tutorials. I have to rely on other people's notes, and this is for majority of my classes, and that can always be a little bit nerve-wracking. So for me to have the option to have recorded tutorials, 1 tutorial a week's recorded, and either made available to everyone, or if it's a specific subject where the requirements are you have to go to 6 out of 8 tutorials, perhaps for that subject you can ask for access to that tutorial that week, to that recording. I also think to increase accessibility and support should be offering a one-on-one tutoring system. Currently, a lot of things like past class and our own tutorials are within groups, and student learning when I have gone has been within groups. So bringing together something that tutors or students who have done well in a subject, and they can step up and say, hey, I'm willing to help people who need support, because currently you have to post on Facebook and that can be really nerve-wracking and quite scary.
Yeah, absolutely. Why do you think tutors are the right people to be helping out in this area?
I think tutors can support the best because they're more knowledgeable on the subject. However, I wouldn't expect them to be doing all of it or having a massive role, especially since as tutors they already have quite a lot on their plate. That it would be useful for those wanting to step up to perhaps speak to tutors or speak to faculty so that they know how they should help, educate them on the best ways to do so. And this is something that could be monitored by VUWSA, hopefully, so that it doesn't become, I'm helping you, but I'm teaching you what I learned last year and not what's no longer relevant this year.
How do you think you'd be able to set up these conversations between VUWSA, tutors and perhaps student learning and the university, considering that tutors have already spoken out a lot that they're taking on too much with pastoral care and their contracts aren't fit for this? It's not actually mentioned at all.
So for me, when it comes down to communication, it gets a little too messy and too overwhelming to have everyone communicating at the same time. I'd rather start off with the students, see what they need, then bring these views to the tutors just to ask them their thoughts, but not so much put the weight on them. And if they don't have the time, then that's perfectly understandable. I would then be going to faculty and saying, this is what I've heard from students, this is what I've heard from tutors, or if they didn't have time, don't even mention it. How can we do more by providing the service would you be willing to sort of place some restrictions or requirements on it or help us in any way?
You talked about having long-term goals that you're campaigning on. Can you give us an example of a long-term goal?
Right. So what I want to do is consultate and work with committees and rep groups in VUWSA. And I think when we talk long-term goals, we've got to think about, are these goals attainable? So while I want to have long-term goals, I need to look at what other groups can do within that. I think one of the first things I'd like to do is implement O-Week cups, and I'd like to do that constantly. And why I think this is a long-term goal is that I think it will last. It could be something that continuously happens in O-Week, and we make reusable cups more sustainable for students. And another thing I'd like to do is work with ebooks and textbooks on campus, because I think that goes into the core of what students can do and something that can really engage students.
When you talk about textbooks in that context, are you meaning textbooks converted to ebooks or a different way of using them?
Yeah, that's a great question. Ebooks as in ebooks available online, but I also want to make secondhand textbooks more accessible, because I think there's lots of students would prefer to trade their books and make money off of it. And while there are websites on Facebook, I think this could be more widespread and really be a sustainable step for the university.
Are you aware of VicBooks campaign, where you can return your old textbooks to VicBooks and they sell them on your behalf for a cheaper price?
I am aware of that, but I'd like to make it more widespread, because I wouldn't say the average first year or second year student knows about that. Or, I'd like to make it more widespread, even apart from VicBooks.
Perfect. How will students know that you've achieved the goals that you've been talking about?
Firstly, that's it. Hopefully it would be an option for them. For me, it'd be really cool to have something that's accessible online and you can see the names, and that'd be something you can see it. But also with dual learning in the future, if we no longer have, well, we always will, but if COVID and having to go into lockdown is not so much of an issue, but if we're still able to have dual learning and still having that option for students, and also the option of tutorial note-taking and recordings, I think that's quite a clear visual, and that I've managed to have something done. But I like to hope that I'll be able to communicate well enough and be someone they know they could lean to or ask questions. So then there's also that aspect that they know there's someone there if they really need it.
I'm going to go to some more general questions now that we have been asking all the candidates today. What is a previous campaign or cause that VUWSA has championed that's affected you, and how has it affected you?
I would probably say definitely Sustainability Week. I think that's because I really liked how VUWSA helped businesses and organisations, especially in that market, really reach out to students. And, because I'm also someone who runs a sustainability business, particularly one that's based on passion, so that really got to my heart, yeah.
The dual learning that James has been working on, part of that he worked on was getting citations. I was taking marketing or management, so I can't remember the specific subject, but we had citations available in the recording, which was super helpful for me. I'm personally quite a visual learner. I love to see what they're hearing, see what I'm hearing at the same time. It helps me personally, and I found that really useful and something that I think he championed really well. And I'd love to keep building on what James has done with dual learning, so that in the future, when students are unwell, they don't have to rely on other students' notes or just hope and pray that they didn't miss something important that day.
And just to round us out today, how would you deal with a conflict of interest should you become a member of the VUWSA Executive?
I don't think I'm someone who really who gets clouded in judgment, so I would always prioritize my job and the role I have to students over everything else. I would weigh the facts, and if I felt myself impartial, I perhaps would have to move away from the role, or perhaps even communicate. I think communication is key. Do I have the ability to manage the issue, or can I find another way to manage it?
I think firstly, if you have a role in VUWSA, your opinion matters in a way. You've been elected for your opinions, but it's all about listening and lifting up other people's voices and other groups' voices. So when it comes to a conflicting opinion, I want to sit down and speak to them where they're comfortable and learn why their opinion's that way, what their perspective is, but not just with that one group, with other groups as well, so that I can learn and not budge my own opinion, my own voice there, and see what the majority wants of everyone, of all the groups, so that it's not just me saying, oh, I want this and I want to do that. It's all about listening and making sure people felt like they've been heard and supported.
Yeah, that's great. Is there any last message you'd like to send out to the student body?
No, good luck for exams and study, everyone. We're good.
Please vote for me. I think I'm really passionate about sustainability and I have some great ideas. So yeah, please vote for me.